Hello, welcome to the Horticulturalists. I am Matthew Lucas.
And I'm Stephen Ryan.
And we post every week on a Friday, so if you want to know what our continuing horticultural adventures might be, do hit subscribe and follow our journey.
Yes, and don't forget too that we can answer your gardening questions, and we do that on our Monday shorts. So if you want to ask me a question, put it in the comments below, give me context by telling me where you are, and we'll get round to answering your questions.
That's really a you, not a we thing, but I'll read it out anyway.
Yes, all right.
And if you're triggered horticulturally by this program, you might want to consider joining the Royal Horticultural Society of Victoria.
Yes, anyone in Australia can join, and they have a fabulous journal that I write for all the time. And there's all sorts of events and other things going on that the Royal is engaged with.
There you go. But now, Stephen, we're in a curious sculptured land of make-believe. What's going on?
All right, well, today we're going to see our inner child come out, I think.
Yes.
And so we're at the Royal Melbourne Botanic Gardens and we're visiting the children's garden, and we're going to talk to the designer and we're going to play and have a look around and just see how a children's garden can really work. So that's the plan for the...
Very exciting, because the children's garden is in one of the main entrances to the Botanic Gardens, and I'm here to tell you, this is a shocking confession, I've never been in.
Well, you sort of think as an adult, you think twice about...
It's not your space.
It's not your space, so you might think that. But I have to say, as an adult going into the space that's been designed specifically for children, we're all kids really, and so it's just what it is. We can all love it.
Okay, well, I'm desperate to see. Let's go.
All right. All right, Matthew, I'd like to introduce Andrew Laidlaw. Nice to see you again, Andrew.
Andrew, we're doing a handshake.
Yes.
Hi, Matthew.
Andrew's the landscape designer for the Royal Botanic Gardens in Melbourne, and we're in one of your landscapes. And so I thought it would be apropos to talk to you about this particular landscape, because it's quite a unique one. I don't think there's too many anywhere like it anywhere else, really.
Or are there?
I don't think there's many that are like this.
Yeah.
Very much nothing in Australia, and there were a few that inspired me overseas, so there's some that I kind of took some inspiration from.
All right, so we better explain. We're actually in what's called the Ian Potter Children's Garden here at the Botanic Gardens. So it's a garden that's been landscaped specifically with kids in mind, to engage them and so forth. So what were the sort of ideas behind what you started with, Andrew?
Sure, so the whole preface of this garden is to connect children to nature through their play. But also, as a Botanic Gardens, we wanted them to learn to love plants. So we wanted to do it specifically through planted landscapes, Stephen.
So there's no swings, no slides, no sand pit, but there's lots of interesting plants, and there's also lots of other sort of landscapey features about the place.
Yeah, well, what we tried to do is create landscape experiences that were all about mystery and being, found, but maybe being a little bit edgy. They could even possibly get lost in here.
Yeah.
So, but the whole thing had to be done by the plants.
Yeah.
So, we've got a snow gum gorge, we've got
yes.
a bamboo forest.
Well, I love the bamboo forest. I'm a
Yep.
big kid at heart anyway.
Yeah, that's good. So the plants do all the work.
Yeah.
And I went to many gardens, particularly in America, where they had all this prescribed, like there were plastic plants you could pull apart, but all of that was taking their kids into their intellect, not into their play. So that's the difference.
So play is the underlying metaphor, really.
It really is. That's
The leitmotif, we could say.
Yes.
yeah.
Now, we're beneath the shade of three spreading, what are these incredible trees?
Yeah. Well, there'll be 5 of them.
Oh, there is.
Because
Yeah.
I'm always
Here's the
5,
thing-
7.
Here's the thing about play. 1,
And
2,
two.
there's 5 trees.
But these are the amazing Brachychiton rupestris, and we wanted trees. So this is the meeting place. So we wanted to use plants in here that the kids could recognise and maybe cuddle and hug and climb. But if they did get lost, they could kind of come back and meet at the bottle tree. So they're kind of the signature plant that you came in here and you could instantly recognise where you were.
And as you're walking down the drive at the front looking into this garden, they are very visually arresting too, because you want to know what are those mad trees and what's going on behind that gate.
Yeah.
And it engages children, I guess, in a way that a lot of gardens don't, because kids engage with the quirky and the odd and the different and the strange. I mean, they'll collect carnivorous plants or they'll collect cacti, but they're probably not so interested in zinnias.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. So it's all about, getting at those kids and their imaginations,
It
isn't it, really?
absolutely is. Yeah, and just to see these things, and they're called a bottle tree. So it's a great tree for a child.
And also, I mean, just from observation too, this is very much a garden where you can get in. You know, generally in particularly botanic gardens, it's, you know, hands off, don't touch, don't walk on the grass, don't go near the plants.
Yeah.
Whereas here, obviously, you want people to touch and feel and walk amongst it all.
So this is an immersive experience for kids, and exactly, we didn't want them to have to get into their intellects at all. They can go anywhere, find little cracks and crevices and be in those places.
Now, that raises the interesting conundrum, though. If you've got kids rampaging through the garden beds, which one assumes they do,
Yes.
how much time off does the garden get, or how do you manage that sort of fairly rough play in a space like this?
So the first thing we did was prepare for that, Stephen, and what we did is we reprofiled this entire soil. So this is like a sports arena. We have a sand profile in here because actually the kids aren't that terrible. It's the compaction that they cause that often causes the problem with plant survival. So we reprofiled, we've got drainage and proper irrigation in here. And so that's important. So we do rest the garden 2 days a week. That's Monday and Tuesday. And we also give the garden 2 months off. So June, July, it gets completely off. So, and it just gives it a rest. It allows us to come in and replant, just kind of refix things a few, you know, just where we need to. But yeah, it needs that break.
So you mentioned before that you did have a little recce in terms of any other inspiration for the garden. So what did you look at? Was there anything exciting? Any ideas you found?
Look, there are a few things. Obviously, we also looked at some of the teaching methods and methodologies that are around, and the Steiner teaching influenced us. So did the Reggio Emilio, and the way they allow their children just to play into space. So that was very important for us. But I was lucky enough to go to America and into parts of Europe where we looked at children's spaces. I was pretty appalled at what I found in most of America, not all of America.
Yeah, well, remember, we've got quite a number of American viewers.
Yes,
so hopefully we
but
found
what
some
I
good ones.
loved in America was their vegetable gardens. Their summer vegetable gardens and programming is amazing. And we added a vegetable garden on the return.
We'll go and have a look at that.
Go and have a
shortly.
look at that. And that was fantastic. And then I found this beautiful children's garden in Cleveland, and it's the Hershey Children's Garden, and it was all the new seasonal planting that was amazing, Stephen. You know, a lot of the flowering plant material. They had ponds there too with some incredible water plants and things like that the children were delighting in. So I took quite a bit of inspiration from that. But it's places like Denmark and actually Norway and some of those places where the design of the children's gardens was so simple. And I came back quite refreshed knowing that I didn't have to be that clever here, but let the plants do all the work. And that was gold.
So I guess the other thing I want to know is, when did this all start? I think this is really important because it's actually a very mature. Lovely mature space now. So how old is the children's garden?
The children's garden is 20 years old this October.
Fantastic.
So we started in 2000. We opened in 2004. But I had a 3-year planning phase, and we started planting the bamboo, the Eucalyptus paucifloras earlier. So they had quite a lot of establishment time, which was very important.
And I assume in some cases, like the bottle trees, you started off with something a bit robust and biggish, so they have a better chance of survival, I guess.
Yeah. So we got the bottle trees from Rudolf Schultz's orchard down there near Geelong. And they were 10-year-old trees already, but they were only about this big.
Really?
So they've really matured since. I couldn't get my arms even halfway around them now.
So these are planted into a thing called structural soil. So that is ballast wrapped in black clay, and that goes underneath the pavement, which locks in the airspace, and then we irrigate underneath, and they are just loving it. They are just going ballistic.
They're swelling out beautifully, and their canopies are wonderfully.
They're amazing, amazing trees. Did you plant anything else mature, or was everything else, you know, fairly starter plants?
We got 5 walking figs from Lord Howe Island, and they were big trees. And the bamboo we tried to get as big as possible. But most other things were, you know, not super big.
So obviously it's a plant-based garden, but there's an enormous amount of design involved in this garden. So how does that all come together?
Sure. So the critical piece here was we had 2 or 3 years in the planning, and I was able to put a team together that involved an artist, which was David Wong. I had an educator, Christine Joy. I had Ros Sevmler, who was in Terp. So we had a really good, well-rounded team. and it was critical. I also had a horticulturalist called Isabella, and we worked beautifully as a team, and we were able to join with a couple of local schools and bring the schools in and let them run free in the Botanic Gardens, and we looked at what they were interested in, because we're talking 2000, even late 1999, where we started this process, and it was a bit of a new idea actually in this country. So it was really important that we explored these options, and our consultation and design process was really worthwhile, and I think you can see that now.
Yes, it's come together wonderfully well. And I guess the other thing I didn't ask, and we probably should, is just how big this space is.
Yeah, so it's a bit over an acre, and again, design, but what we did, you've got a space that's this big, and you break it up into a lot of little spaces, and it seems a lot bigger.
Yeah, well, it certainly feels a lot bigger than an acre. I mean, if I was gardening, well, I am gardening on about an acre, and this looks bigger than my garden, I have to say.
Yeah.
And we can also hear the children enjoying the fruits of your labour. And I think just the other point to make about the design is that this doesn't look like a children's garden. You know, things for children can often be sort of dumbed down or oversimplified. This is very sophisticated and beautiful, and it's not age specific. I mean, I want to throw myself around and go and explore. So it's very interesting, I think, that it's not simplified or
no, I understand what you're saying there, and I think again sometimes the adults design these spaces, but they use too much of their intellect and they somehow stuff it up, whereas we let plants drive this. And look, I come back to that other point, Stephen. We talked about soil preparation, but plant selection was critical here, and you will notice every ground cover is either a strap or a reed plant.
Oh yeah, so those sort of strappy leaf things,
Because if they collapse or get trodden on, they have a much better repair mechanism. We did have a lavender mound and a rosemary mound.
And you don't anymore?
No, because the substructure breaks and doesn't repair itself, where you'll notice all the ground cover material is pretty well.
So all the reeds, bushes, grasses, all that sort of group of plants.
Yeah, so that was very important.
This sounds like a garden that we have to peel through the layers of and go and have.
Yeah, well, I want to go paddle in the pond.
I want to. There's this beautiful sort of walkway through the eucalypts, through those concrete shards. I'm loving that.
So they're bluestone shards, and they're kind of our snow gum gorge.
Right.
And then we have our rainforest. We have our bamboo forest, and we have a couple of plant.
So the kids can make up stories as well as.
And so can I, Stephen Ryan. So
get
can I.
adventurous in there. So that's
Well,
fabulous.
I think without further ado, Andrew, thank you so much for your time. We should go and explore the garden more fully.
Yes, we'll go and look at every nook and cranny, shall we?
We will. Thank you.
Try not to get lost.
Oh, we may well do that.
Thank you
Okay.
very much
Thank
for
you,
your time.
Andrew.
See you,
We'll
guys.
catch up with you again soon.
Perfect.
So Stephen, if you follow the little rill through here, we're in this like jungle book environment. Now, what are these amazing, I presume, figs with these aerial roots?
Yes, they're one of the ficuses that produces a massive aerial roots down from it. A child of any age would walk into this and go, oh my goodness, it's
Well,
just...
I am. This is the thing too, as we were saying before, this is just such an engaging space. It doesn't matter how old you are.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the kids are having the best time. They're running everywhere, up and over the rocks and all over the place.
So here you are, Stephen, your inner child in a wonderful bamboo enclosure. Oh,
It is
look, there's
fabulous.
even a platform we could climb up.
Yeah, well, maybe later, but it's fabulous. And yes, children of all ages will enjoy this, and I certainly am.
I am. Now, what is this bamboo? Andrew did mention it, didn't he?
Yes, he did. It's one of the Phyllostachys bamboo, so it's a running bamboo. The only way you can create a grove, of course, is to have a running bamboo.
Yeah.
And they're managed, they're cleaned up so that you can see the trunks properly, and they are just truly remarkable. So I think it's Phyllostachys bambusoides, but I could be proven wrong.
You don't need to be. It's beautiful.
It is, it's just fabulous.
Off we go.
All right.
Well, here we are in the veggie garden, Stephen. We've dragged you into the veggie garden. Are you are you triggered gardening in Australia?
I am a little triggered, I have to say.
So we're in this wonderful hop arch with also amazing gourds and loofahs growing over it.
And it's got kiwi fruit on it. It's got all sorts of climbing beans and
Oh my
almost
goodness.
everything you can imagine that's a climbing, vaguely vegetable-y like thing.
Look at the size of whatever that is.
It's huge, isn't it?
Now we're going to go just around here. I guess the other thing is there are lots of flowers in this garden.
Yes, as one should in a vegetable garden. I mean, you want to attract the pollinators, so that's really important.
I can see dahlias.
Yeah.
But there was something over here that is really quite intriguing.
Yes.
This here.
Yeah, well, that's a cold hardy sort of vaguely tropical plant though, and it's a bacopa. And we did engage with Bacopa when we were at the Edible Forest
The Edible
Garden
Forest,
ages
yeah.
ago. So this is a Bacopa plant, and it's got lots and lots of fruit forming on it, some of which look like they're just about ripe as well. But being the children's garden, we're not allowed to have any.
No, and I want to just move over here. We're
Yeah.
going to spin around, right round, right
Yeah.
round, because there is a compost heap.
Isn't that fabulous?
Now, a compost heap in the children's veggie garden. I mean, obviously, why not? Because you need a compost heap. But
Yeah.
what do you think it would do?
Well, I think.
I mean, it's a compost heap, but
Yeah, yes, it's
in
got
the
a compost
context
heap.
of a children's garden.
Well, I think children in general these days are kept so far away from nature, particularly kids who live in urban areas. And so it's all about the learning process. So children can be brought in here and not just to play and have a great time and mix amongst the plants, but it can also be a great learning exercise. And they can learn that something like a compost heap actually has a really important function in a garden. So I think it's fabulous that, you know, all of this is here, not just
the
the
pretty things,
Yeah, the
yeah.
pretty things. So, you know, having compost heaps and having vegetables and edibles and things in the place, it gives kids the whole gamut of what nature's about. So I think it's fabulous.
It is. It's a really beautiful garden. And again, as we said with Andrew, it's not about it being for children. It's just a really beautiful veggie garden.
It is. It's just perfect. And the staff is looking after it really, really well. So more merit to them.
On to the next bit.
Yes.
So, I am loving this garden so much. So that was very interesting what Andrew was saying about the choice of ground covers.
Yes, so anything with a strappy leaf, any monocotyledonous plants, as the children of
As they
obviously-
will know.
Yes, they all know. They have the mechanisms to refurbish themselves so they get crushed. So it's working really well. And here behind us, we've got the most beautiful snow gums.
Yeah.
Eucalyptus pauciflora with their amazing trunks, which of course would engage the children just on their own, but underneath there's all the native grasses looking absolutely fabulous. So it's a really pretty setting and robust, so
Yeah.
it can cope with quite a little bit of attention.
And grass seems to be, or grass species seems to be one of the primary sort of lower understory choices. I guess for that very reason that it is tough and easy to regenerate.
Yeah, and it will come back again after being crushed, trampled on, pulled at, you name it, it will come back again.
Oh, well, we need to walk through this snow gum walkway.
Oh yes, I think so. It's one of the highlights of the garden.
So this is the bluestone, which I mistakenly thought was concrete.
Yes.
And the snow gum. So what is that, the botanic name of these gums again?
Eucalyptus pauciflora, meaning small flowered, and it's one of the highest altitude eucalypts in Australia. And
Ducking under.
in the Alps, yes, duck underneath the trees. We're not the small children that this is designed for. So this is sort of meant to evoke a ravine, I guess.
Oh,
So
well,
it's wonderful.
Very beautiful. And for all of our North American and European viewers, this is one of the most hardy eucalypts.
Oh yes,
isn't it?
from the cold perspective, you're more likely to be able to grow Eucalyptus pauciflora than basically any other species.
There you go. Well, Stephen Ryan, that was a revelation. And can I just say, if you're in Melbourne or Victoria, do visit the Children's Garden, because it's not a children's garden.
Well, it is, but
I mean,
it
it
is.
is, but-
yeah, adults can enjoy it too, so you should go and have a look. It is just fabulous. And we're actually standing virtually at the entrance to the Children's Garden amongst a design feature that Andrew's actually put in place to evoke an undersea feel. And I get it. I mean, these weird forms around us are sort of like giant kelp. And then you've got the asparagus ferns that look like seaweed sitting around their feet. And I can see animals and dinosaurs and birds and all sorts of things in these things that were never really meant to be those things.
Yeah,
But there you go.
I have often wondered about this bit of the garden. So now that we know,
Yes.
like the artist has explained the concept, I get it now.
Yeah.
But honestly, it is one of the most, I think in terms of design, one of the most beautifully designed gardens I've seen in a while.
Yep, well there you go. And
And not too big.
no, it's just a nice size to wander around and it's easy to manage.
As Alexandra would say, it's a middle-sized garden because it's about an acre. So, you know, large for the inner city, but not a park. It's
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
I can imagine people taking ideas out of this particular children's garden to develop for their own home gardens. It's that good a landscape.
It really is. The rill that takes you into the tropical area, the use of strappy things as ground cover.
Yep.
the engagement, I don't know, the use of the bamboo that grows.
Yeah, all that quirky plant material that sort of you've got
Tactile.
to, yeah, you've got to look at it and go, my goodness, look at that thing, and you need to hug it and touch it and be engaged with it. So great garden from that perspective.
And a very lovely vegetable garden which actually demonstrates the cycles of life.
Yes, and it shows children what things grow on.
Where they come from.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. You know, chocolate milk does not come from a brown cow.
And Stephen, the thing I've noticed in the children's garden is that everything has such good and large signage, but also the botanic names.
Yes, and I think that's a wonderful thing because it gives people the opportunity to learn some botanical names if they want, and it also means that they can look things up and find out about them if they've got the botanical.
Well, I've loved this visit to the Royal Botanic Gardens Melbourne. Many thanks to Andrew for his time explaining the concept and the process of designing this beautiful garden.
And he will be showing up again too. He's a remarkable landscape designer, and I'll be talking to him again, I'm sure.
I'm sure. But if you want to know what we're doing next week, you'll have to hit subscribe.
Yes, and don't forget our Monday shorts. So give us a question, I'll answer them, tell me where you're from, and everybody can gain from the question and answer thing.
They can indeed. But until then, we look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye all.